So the issue with Nintendo versus Ice right now, or the Pokemon Company versus Ice right now, is getting weirder and weirder. If you're not aware, one of the most recent videos I put out, and a video a lot of people have put out, is about the fact that Ice, or rather the Department of Homeland Security's official Twitter page, put out a video of the Pokemon theme song playing with, interspliced cuts of Ice raids and the Pokemon intro stuff happening in it. And in that, they ended up spelling out Department of Homeland Security in the Pokemon font. And that's important here. That's not something I didn't catch on in my last video about this, but that is kind of important here, especially if it comes to, is Nintendo / the Pokemon Company going to sue the Department of Homeland Security? And to clarify, yes, the Pokemon Company is separate from Nintendo. The Pokemon Company is jointly owned by Game Freak, Creature Inc., and Nintendo. Each of them own 33% of it, but Nintendo always seems to be the one doing the suing on behalf of the Pokemon Company, which is why I'm going to be saying Nintendo a lot here. And yes, they can, because they own 33% of it. They put out that video, and then almost antagonistically, it seems like, because the world is being run by children right now, almost antagonistically, it seems like they put out another little comment, almost in response to the fact that a lot of people were calling on Nintendo to sue them. So let me pop that up real quick. It wasn't a video, it was a GIF. To be fair, it wasn't a video, it was a GIF. And this one I can actually play because it doesn't have copywritten music. This thing right here. The CBP posted Border Patrol's newest recruit, a little Pikachu doing a dance there. You're not going to convince me that that was not just an immature response to people saying, hey, you should sue them. You're not going to convince me to that. Now, this is the CBP, not the DHS Gov, but still, it's Customs and Borders Patrol, for those who aren't aware. Now, in response to this, people reached out to Nintendo and tried to reach out to the DHS and get their statements on this and how they were feeling about this. And Nintendo responded that they were aware, but that they did not give any permission for this to be done. Their exact statement was, we are aware of a recent video posted by the Department of Homeland Security that includes imagery and language associated with our brand. Our company was not involved in the creation or distribution of this content, and permission was not granted for the use of our intellectual property. Post-recording note, just to address all the people in the comments that were saying, oh, well, they can get away with this because it's fair use, the Department of Homeland Security can get away with this because it's fair use. It's not fair use. Fair use is only for very specific categorizations, very specific situations that make it fair use, and those situations are criticism. They're not criticizing at all. They, at no point in that video did they conduct a criticism of Pokemon Company, Nintendo, or the theme song. Commentary. They're not doing commentary on it. They're not really even talking about the thing. They're using it as advertisements, as a advertisement technique. News reporting. They aren't doing any news reporting on Nintendo Company or on Nintendo or the Pokemon Company. So they're not reporting anything that would necessitate they show the intro sequence stuff or play the intro sequence theme song. Teaching. They're not teaching anything, and they're definitely not teaching anything related to Pokemon or the Nintendo Company. Scholarship. No, they're not offering scholarships. Or research. They're not offering research. What they are doing is advertising. They are using Pokemon and Nintendo IP for advertising purposes. So no, this is not fair use in any way whatsoever. That's not an excuse the DHS can make. It's probably one they'll try to make if there's a lawsuit, but it's not one that would hold up to muster. At the very least, they clarified that despite some conspiracy theories that I might have jokingly pushed forward a little bit too, very clearly jokingly, Nintendo was not involved in this. I was seeing conspiracy theories, like in my comments, that maybe this was part of, like, Nintendo gave permission in order to help get the patents pushed through. That would be wild. That would be insane. But no, apparently that is not the case. They did not give any permission for this to be used, and it is, in fact, infringement. Now, here's the thing. I said in my last video, to be fair, I was incredibly sick and I felt like I was dying while recording my last video. I said in my last video that if it's just copyright infringement, then they don't have to enforce it. You do not have to enforce copyright infringement. Copyright infringement is not copyright is not a use it or lose it situation, but trademark is. If you don't enforce your trademark, you will lose your trademark. And unfortunately for Nintendo, I'm going to say here, unfortunately for Nintendo, because I'm sure they don't want this heat, unfortunately for Nintendo, in the video that DHS posted, they took the Pokemon logo, or the font of the Pokemon logo, and they wrote out the the Department of Homeland Security in the Pokemon logo font. Now, I'm not 100% on whether or not this constitutes trademark infringement or not, because they are not necessarily trying to sell anything. They're not using it in commerce, and trademark is meant to protect you in commerce, but it might still qualify enough or toe the line enough that it might compel Nintendo to have to sue the Pokemon, or have to sue the Pokemon Company, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company to have to sue the Department of Homeland Security, because they are directly using their font in a way that is incredibly misleading and did in fact lead many people to believe that maybe Nintendo and the Department of Homeland Security, the Pokemon Company and the Department of Homeland Security are working together. That might kind of force Nintendo's hand into suing the Department of Homeland Security. But, my friends, there have been opinions on this, and one of these opinions has come from the former Pokemon Company Chief Legal Officer, Don McGowan. And he thinks it is a fight that Nintendo does not want. And I agree, it's a fight that Nintendo doesn't want. And it's a fight that the Pokemon Company doesn't want. They definitely don't want to have to go after a government institution, because that's going to be a lot of money, a lot of bad press, and just a lot of heat and potential sanctions put on them, especially in the modern world where now it's, if you are a company or an institution or an individual that speaks out against the government at all, you're probably going to get some sort of sanction put on you. You're probably going to get targeted by the government because the political power is being used to quell free speech. His statement is, the Pokemon Company is insanely publicity shy. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how true that is, at least when it comes to them wanting to file lawsuits, because despite this supposed insanely political publicity shyness, they have been filing a lot of lawsuits and doing a lot of stuff that has gotten them a lot of negative publicity. So I don't know how publicity shy they are anymore. This is a former chief legal officer, so maybe when he was with them, they are. Or maybe he's talking specifically about the Pokemon Company and not Nintendo, but Nintendo is a 33% owner in the Pokemon Company and has been filing lawsuits nonetheless, as for Pokemon IP and Pokemon-related things. So maybe that's what they're talking about. He also said, and this is the argument where I'm kind of like, this might be true. This part might be true. This might be why they won't file a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security. Many of their execs in the USA are on green cards. That might be enough to do it. That might be enough to get the Nintendo company get Nintendo and the Pokemon Company to not want to file this lawsuit, because if a lot of their execs are on green cards in the US and they start filing lawsuits against the Department of Homeland Security, I'm willing to bet we're going to see the Department of Homeland Security suddenly come up with reasons why ICE needs to grab their asses and deport them. I mean, I'll get to the statement they made in response to being questioned about this later, and it really, really leans like they might do that, and we're just seeing it. We're just seeing that they're kind of just throwing out those deportations anyways, so I can see that being the case. Don McGowan followed up by saying, even if I was still at the company, I wouldn't touch this, and I'm the most trigger-happy CLO I've ever met. This will blow over in a couple of days, and they'll be happy to let it. I'm not sure if it will blow over. One, because I showed you the fact that now Customs and Border Patrol is posting Pikachu and saying this is our new recruit. And that is also something that can lead to a little bit of trademark infringement, because Pikachu is trademarked. He's copywritten and trademarked. To the guy in the comments that tried to say that Pikachu is not copywritten because he doesn't understand fucking copyright law, Pikachu is copywritten and trademarked. And because they're using it in a way that says, hey, this is our new recruit, and because that is leading to some confusion amongst people saying that, oh, well, maybe Nintendo's working with ICE on this and working with the DHS. It's not necessarily commerce, it's not within commerce, but it's still causing consumer confusion, so it might be in violation of trademark law, which means Nintendo might have to. They might have to file a lawsuit and have to defend this and say that, hey, this is not okay, we didn't approve this, you're not allowed to do this, you have to take this down, otherwise they might lose their trademark. So I don't know how happy they'll be to let it blow over. I don't know if they're gonna let it blow over. This man is not with the company anymore, and he's trying to claim that they are publicity shy, and they're clearly not. They are clearly not publicity shy. They are so quick to jump on anything they can and so quick to quell everything they can, despite the fact that they know it's going to get them a lot of negative publicity, despite the fact that they know that the gaming community is going to come after them for it. So I don't think they're publicity shy at all. I think he's a little bit wrong here. But maybe not. Maybe they are. The big argument that he made that I think might be a reason why they don't do this is because of the fact that a lot of their execs are on green cards. And I have no doubt in my mind that if Nintendo and the Pokemon Company came after Department of Homeland Security, they would find a lot of those execs being deported all of a sudden. I'm willing to bet. And probably being deported to El Salvador, despite the fact that probably a lot of them are Japanese. I am willing to bet. So maybe they won't. I'm going to go ahead and assume that they will, because I'm going to go ahead and assume that they will risk being deported in order to protect their trademark. I think they'll be fine with that. I think they'll risk being deported in order to protect their trademark because they'd rather lose some of their execs in America and have them come back to Japan. They might even fly their executives that are on green cards back to Japan before filing the lawsuit and then just replace them with a lot of American-hired executives, is how I assume this will happen. But when a DHS spokesperson was reached out to for their comments on the use of the theme song, their response was, "To arrest them is our real test. To deport them is our cause." This article, it's a PC Gamer article, has not provided who the spokesperson was. That spokesperson probably asked to remain anonymous. That is certainly a telling response. But with that, I am going to end this here. Please, if you've reached this far, leave a like and a comment. And if you can hype the video, please hype the video. I'm really wanting to see how that hyping videos works, how well it actually helps. If you are so inclined, please leave a subscription as well, so that you can be informed when I'm releasing more videos and turn on notifications. And finally, if you are interested in helping the channel in a more direct way, please sign up for memberships. The membership info is down below. 100% of the funding from memberships is going to go straight to my editor until it reaches such a point that I can afford to hire him on full time. But with that, I leave you. I'm still a little bit sick, so sorry if I sound super congested. Goodbye.